broadcasting right now. The match is now getting underway. It's going to be on Antigua Shipyard, where we're actually going to get the chance to take a look at Sheth's build attempt yet again versus Air. And this is a build that's very, very nice for the Protoss Air opening.
And so just to give you a quick update, that does mean that Sheth is actually 0-3 in his challenge. So he has not been able to achieve that winning record that he's been shooting for. But, you know, I think that he's still going to come away from this going, you know, this was ridiculously helpful. So I cannot wait for the post-interview after we wrap this first Focus Player session up. And then, of course, don't forget, coming up in the second half of the match, or of the day, we've also got Thorzane as the Focus Player number 2. And you cannot forget, we've got Korea versus Sweden, Team Mono Battles.
Team Mono Battles happening tonight for Fun Day Monday.
Yep.
Eliciting the largest cheer from the crowd yet. Now,
or at least that guy.
You know, one of my favorite sayings is, losses are just arrows that point you in the right direction. The more losses that you have, the easier it is for you to see where you need to go. If there's a leak that happened in the early game, no big deal. You can just see, oh, didn't have enough units at the 2-minute mark. Have to make sure I have enough units. You know, Sheth has an extremely nice advantage that he has lost in 3 completely different ways.
Yeah, that's actually true. And I think each one he can take away and you know, because with any strategy, right, you've got to do it so many times before you truly do know the ins and outs of it all. You just don't come up with the most amazing thing and go, great, this is going to win every game. It's obviously a lot about trial and error and et cetera, et cetera. So, again, it comes down to I feel like he's, you know, pretty comfortable so far with how the training's been going. And, you know, Sheth is a guy that stays in good spirits, so I don't think he's necessarily getting frustrated in there going like, oh, this will never work. But hopefully he walks away and things are looking good. But let's switch over to the game as we have not only the hatch attempt to be blocked, but SaSe is going to be going for the Nexus first. And, oh, look at that. The hatch manages to get down.
Very, very nice timing there by Sheth managing to plant that hatch down. You know, I didn't want to come back to that we were talking about earlier about these losses, you know, that were happening all over the map. You can almost imagine if there were 100 random games of Protoss openings and Protoss play. Maybe 10 of them would be that 4-gate Void Ray aggression. Maybe 4 of them would be that long-term game we saw from Puma. Or excuse me, maybe 10 of them will be that game that we saw against Puma and Hasu in those games. So even though they're those different kinds of losses, if you can suddenly fix both of them, you have improved your win rate in the matchup by 20%. You just work on these little bits at a time, and they start to add up a lot. Looks like Sheth does manage to get the 4 lings out, take down the probe, and he's always going to try to put some pressure on with these 4 lings. We've seen him do this consistently. Run by against Hasuops, try to pick off the pylon against JYP. Who I think I called Puma again earlier.
So we do have the lings going over. I'm sure there's going to be a pylon here, but no, which means Sheth's going to be able to put down that hatchery completely uncontested. One thing, and especially on this particular map, but SaSe really likes to build confined walls all the time. And I mean, in this map, you really have to, but this is like really tight as far as even SaSe is concerned. But here we got the Zealot coming out. These lings are going to be making their way over, and the placement of the photon cannon is just kind of perfect in this situation. Of course, except for this up here.
SaSe leaving a little bit of a vulnerability, but clearly has a backup plan ready. Building the first Zealot, not just to be able to kill off these Zerglings, but also to be able to do some pressure. But it looks like it was not quite there in time. And, you know, again, I like this decision by Sheth in terms of his own practice. In a ladder game, you always kill this and you fist pump and think, lol, enjoy the supply block, nerd. Now you know what Overlord hunting feels like. But if you're practicing, you want to say, no, maybe just misplace it that time. Maybe he wasn't thinking. I'm just going to allow him to keep that up so that way I can be up against the best possible Stargate play possible. Possible.
No, that's a good thought here. So Sheth now having, ooh, I like this. Look at this. Okay, SaSe's rolling with the punches. You know, I don't usually open Stargate, but where is that Stargate? The Overlord has moved in. He sees the pylon over in the side. That's usually a really good indication that someone's fighting something over there in the smoke. But it is going up, and I guess we see that second pylon just completing a wall off there, so that was really his intention. But is the Overlord going to peek and investigate what is behind the smoke there?
Uh-oh, it looks like there's the nab on the watchtower in the center, the Overlord. The Overlord! You know, I'm almost... Well, you know, Sheth is not going to run into this problem until after the training session. He's almost just straight assuming what his opponent's going to do and just responding to that. And I think that that's okay, because first you want to get the timings down in your head, and then you want to go into the mode of, okay, now that I know what timings I need to use if I see air, now I can start looking for it in future games. And it looks like SaSe doing the same opening JYP did, the 4-gate Void Ray play.
Yep. You know, I also like SaSe's decision when that Stalker was being chased back. He actually sent the Zealot into the base as well. Checked for the third. I don't think really got any kills as the Zerglings came in there, but I'll just double check. Oh, it looks like a drone was killed. I'm not sure if it was at that time. But the Overlord did get in, and as we look at the vision, he did spot the Stargate. So very, very aware that this is here. But the probe's going to get taken out, and this pylon that would have certainly reinforced with a lot of those Zealots is going to go down with only one warp gate. Oh, 2 on the wall ground.
Oh, is he actually going to get it?
I think he's going to get it. There
wow, he does manage to knock it down. That is going to help Sheth so much. That's the exact thing that we saw Sheth not quite do when he was playing up against JYP. But here come the Zealots with the +1 ready to be threatening regardless.
Yep, and they're going to go right in the middle run. Now they're going to target down the Queens. We see the Void Ray charging up on the rocks that block that third entrance in the back. And now the Zealot's moving in, again, serving as sort of a distraction here. And what will he go after? The Zealot will finally go down. And wow, after all that charging time, he probably could have actually assisted in that battle, but did have to back off. Zealot's backing off as well. And, you know, the one Phoenix out. So what's interesting is that, well, SaSe's like, okay, that was really not that incredible of an opening. So I'm going to go ahead and throw down my third Nexus. We'll block off the 2 gateways. We get the cannon as well. And the Phoenix out is at least going to be doing some Overlord hunting. But so what do you think about, let's talk a little bit about SaSe's attack there. Was the pylon going down and not having those additional Zealot warps in? Was that really the fault of the, or the, I guess, the kink in that armor?
Yeah, I really feel like that the appropriate play for SaSe was to be able to pylon in a little bit more of a vulnerable locate, or I should say an easier to spot location, but a less vulnerable spot. Like behind the minerals, very easy to find that, but it's also very easy for SaSe to have the units in play to defend it. And I think Sheth's issue is that his roaches are a little bit late. Fortunately, Sheth has gotten to step past that. He wasn't really trying to defend, or wasn't trying right now to figure out how to defend all these openings perfectly. He's trying to get to the late game and figure out how to deal with the 3-base moment. And now it looks like SaSe is currently doing a huge amount of Overlord damage, even picking off some roaches potentially.
Yeah, he went up to 4 Phoenix right now, and I'm not sure if he's going to continue to make any more. There we see some Stalkers warping in, but even picking up some of those individual roaches and focusing them down without any loss is going to be a good little victory for SaSe as he continues to make a wall here at this third. And it's gone generally pretty uncontested as the macro hatch goes up. Infestation pit done, and this is great. I mean, look at, again, the positioning of the Spore Crawlers, unfortunately, do not help in this particular battle, and that means a couple of Overlords are going to go down. And I'm not sure if he expected the Phoenix production to stop, but SaSe just kept on with it. Very similar to what JYP did versus Sheth in game number 1.
Yeah, this is an extremely difficult fact that a lot of Zergs have to reconcile with, Marcus, that they pretty much are guaranteed to lose Overlords, guaranteed to lose at least something. It's still a tremendous investment for Protoss to get these air units up early on. So that's the general balancing factor that a Zerg's working with. At the same time, it's funny to see how big a difference we're seeing in SaSe's opening versus the other 2 Protoss openings. SaSe opted to get Blink first and then get his robotics facility.
Yeah.
Every single Protoss we've seen yet has gotten a much faster robo, almost basically going Stargate, robo, gates, expand to third.
Now we have a little force moving out across the map. The creep is certainly starting to get up there, and the X-Gold base is now being occupied here by Sheth. But this is a pretty difficult spot to hold because if you are not actively controlling the center, that will most certainly go down. But, I mean, at this moment, I'm not sure if that means he feels comfortable going ahead and taking it, but he's kind of abandoned it here, so I'm curious to see exactly what his plan is. Now he's making his way back to the front. So just taking a look also at upgrades. 1-1 right now with +2 air on the way. Well, no, okay, there it is. Yeah, the Hive is finishing up. So continuing that trend of the a little bit earlier Hive.
And there's the +2 attack going down. It looks like SaSe taking a second third base, more commonly known as a fourth, Marcus. Sheth does try to do a poke. He does get nabbed. No big deal. Manages to pull back effectively. But we're seeing there's about a minute left on the range upgrade and about 2 minutes left on the greater spire. So that means that SaSe is going to be able to push a little bit earlier. It's always that push that happens at 16 to 17 minutes that Zergs are really struggling with. And here comes swing around the right flank. Oh, these spine crawlers and infestors might be a little bit late yet again.
Yeah, and you know, I'm not sure that it's smart to, when holding the middle, like poke forward. He was forced back. That allowed the Protoss a little bit of confidence to move forward. Is he going to attack into this? He still has to control this area here. The Infestor's out now. And again, these Hydras still without the range upgrade at this point. And here we go. He's going to force the battle. The Fungals do go down. The Roach is in fairly decent positioning as the force fields actually do not eliminate that ground army by much. The Infestors get lifted to eliminate them from fungling, but they eventually will be put back down. And all the ground units are gone. They're going to have to get out of there as quickly as possible. That was actually a remarkable decision by SaSe to pick up those Infestors, and here is exactly what I was talking about. Now that he's lost the ground in the middle, this base, unfortunately, is going to get crushed.
Sheth has a clear decision. He has to let this hatch fall and is just going to try to minimize those drone losses. He does have 86 drones right now, so as long as he can just keep all of those alive. Oh, no! Very nice point by SaSe to pick off those units that just popped out. As long as Sheth can keep those units alive, it means that whenever he does take a fourth, he'll be able to replenish it quite quickly, but Sheth is running very low on options. He has a huge push at his base right now, and he is only just now able to start building those Broodlords.
Yeah, he's got the drones on the run, possibly to take them over to that far fourth base, but that third goes down, and right now he just doesn't have a whole lot to deal with this. Some slow lings, speed is just finishing up. Do we have any Broodlords yet? No, because we're supply blocked, and all those Overlords going down was a huge, huge disadvantage now for Sheth. His army gets caught in the middle. A few roaches going to go down. This is just kind of, it all seemed to happen when he forcefully took that front middle, or that middle base, and tried to defend that center. Maybe he wasn't quite ready for that. Not sure if that's typically something that he does, but we got a blink into the main base as he uses the smart blink to take everything up there, including the Colossus.
Walks right up into the main base, and we see that those Blink Stalkers are going to be able to jump right underneath these cocoons. The Corruptors immediately cancel out, so that way they can try to pick off all of these Colossi. And it looks like Sheth might get a little bit of a fortunate break if he can pick off these Colossi at the back. He has a lot of ground units, does get a good fungal growth, but now SaSe whips around, picks off the Corruptors, and all that Sheth can do is try to build as many units as he can, rally them here. The Spore Crawler might be able to get a Colossus kill of his own, but no dice.
Yeah, not going to happen, and a lot of tech is starting to fall here, including the inevitable drop of the Hive as well. Now moving down the ramp, drones likely to get targeted. Actually, they somehow escape out of there with their life, because more important than drones is just eliminating all this tech inside the main base. More links coming out to try to battle this, a few infested Terrans, but it looks like SaSe has his opponent's base on lockdown, and you can see actually no activity over here in SaSe's base, which means that Sheth is basically defending his life.
And now it looks like SaSe has spotted the bottom expansion, and we're seeing the same general theme again and again. Sheth has had a lot of trouble in that phase from mid-game to getting the Broodlords up. The only game where he managed to do it successfully was against Hasu. But even then, it looked a little bit iffy when he looked at his expansion count.
Roach Warren going back up. I mean, right now, even the force in the main could be enough to deal with what is out on the field. And SaSe loading up with 2 more Stargates. We're not even going to get to see what they do.
Ouch,
because the GG.
Again. So that tragically puts Sheth at 0-4 in his challenge, but we're seeing these adjustments that he's making along the way, sometimes for better, sometimes for worse, but that's the process that you have to go through, is that iteration to try to really hit the heart of what's going wrong.
Absolutely, and you said it perfectly, that these losses are just kind of arrows that point you in the right direction. And the whole idea was to focus on something. We don't go out and play baseball and then expect to hit home runs right off the bat. You have to keep swinging that bat. You have to start reading that ball. You have to know how the pitcher throws. You have to put all these things together, and then suddenly you're finding your game. And that's exactly what we're seeing here. Now, of course, it would be phenomenal to actually see the progress just happened right in front of our eyes, but we've got 3 days to go here in the Red Bull LAN for Orlando, and all these players are here, all the knowledge that is here, everything that exists for Sheth to really utilize. I think I think obviously his learning's not done here. This was just kind of a great start. Probably not happy. Reviewing some replays again, but again, you've got to start at square one, and you got to move from there.
Yeah, I really think that Sheth is starting to realize that the big misjuncture is that infestor timing. I think you almost have to go in one of two directions. You either have to get a very early infestation pit, a la Stefano, or get a very late infestation pit, as we saw Maru almost suggest by getting those Nidus worms. If you go to that in-between phase, you both don't put pressure on with Roach Hydra Corruptor, and you don't get the Broodlords up fast enough. You kind of stay a little bit passive, a little slow, and you kind of get it weakly. And almost every time we've seen those Corruptors and Broodlords pop up, there hasn't been the economy there to back them. It's almost like 4 Broodlords, and then another 2, and then another 2. And then after like 20 minutes pass, now we have 10, and then we push. And then we end up pushing off creep, that sort of thing.
And in the one game where we saw the remarkable timing versus Hasuavs with the Broodlords getting out, then it almost becomes, and I hope that you'll kind of address this with them, is that, does he now see a need to also focus and think heavily about how he's dealing with that vortex? And, maybe specifically on Daybreak, but, that level of the game. Because, if you're having problems getting to that point, then you probably don't have that much experience battling against that either. And so, that's kind of it's kind of an interesting scenario that is introduced.
The big thing I think to note is that the vortex was almost irrelevant at that point in time.
Sure.
It's the number of expansions that the opponent had that were so key. I think Hasuavs did manage to get some nice vortexes down, but the key problem is that Hasu was taking the top left, kept this dirt alive, and took the 4th. Right. The 5th at the north side of the map. And that sort of expansion count, I mean, Vortex doesn't mean anything if after the battle's said and done, Zerg has another full-maxed army of roaches rolling at you.